If you're an athlete, you know the greatest motivator of all is the fear of letting your teammates down. After all, a team is only as good as its weakest link. So you owe it to those wearing the same jersey as you to be your best every time you step on the field. That's why there's no vape in team. When you vape, you can expose your lungs to toxic chemicals that can damage your lungs. If you're a step behind, the team's a step behind. Brought to you by The Real Cost and the FDA.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What would you say if I told you there's a book that can teach you how to win The Bachelor?
What would you say if I told you producers caught multiple finalists reading that book in this season that's currently airing?
What would you say if I told you the producers don't want anyone to know that their show has been compromised?
How do we know all this? We wrote that book.
I'm Lizzie Pace.
And I'm Chad Kulchin.
We're the authors of How to Win the Bachelor and the hosts of the Game of Roses podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we break down all the biggest plays, errors, and MVPs in the game of reality television.
Listen to Game of Roses wherever you get your podcasts and go to howtowinthebachelor.com to get our book.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile, the podcast where we walk home from the movies. Today we're watching Free Guy.
Yeah,
because it's free.
We were dying to see this in the cinema, missed it, and then suddenly it's popped up on Disney Plus. So
yeah, not too long after it was in cinemas.
Yeah, really soon after cinemas. So we're a little bit late in the review of this one, but it is one we wanted to catch.
Yeah, because it had kind of good word of mouth. This was recommended to us by a few people, which surprised me because I saw the trailer and it looked bad.
Oh, well, I haven't seen the trailer.
Oh, no?
The only thing I know is that my mom recommended it and said it was a bit like The Truman Show, and that's enough for me.
Oh,
yeah.
Your mom popped over to the cinema to see Free Guy.
She did, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good on you, Linda.
I'm excited to see it. I'm actually happy that it's on Disney Plus because it's not one of those movies that I'm sure is like worth the cost of a babysitter and 2 cinema tickets, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But that's really based on nothing.
Exactly what you mean.
It's just not really had any buzz about it other than, some kind of gently positive reviews.
Some minor buzz.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like, I want to go to the cinema for a bit of an event, really.
But I'm glad I didn't see the trailer because I don't want it ruined. And big Ryan Reynolds fan. So
you don't know what it's about?
No. Except that there's some Truman
Show-esque
yeah.
elements.
So let's go, and I think it's a comedy. So we go watch it?
Yeah, let's go watch it.
Let's go watch it on our sofa.
So we're going to see you guys after we've streamed Free Guy and we come back out for a walk.
Yeah.
Bye.
Guy, this world, it's a video game. And it's full of bad guys.
I'm a rule breaker. I'm a rattle chicka snaker.
We need you to be the good guy.
I'm sorry! Oh, God! Wow! Giddy up!
Is that a Glock in your pocket?
No.
What?
It's 2 Glocks. Oh!
Hi, we're back. We watched Free Guy.
Yeah, and we really enjoyed it, didn't we?
Did we?
It's like
did
fun
we?
throwaway movie.
It was totally fine. I'm definitely glad to pick up on what you said earlier. I'm glad that we didn't pay for a night out and get our babysitter in and all that. I think I would have been a little deflated. I mean, it's entertaining, sure, but I feel like it was more at home on my TV screen.
100%. And for that, like, just to sit in on a Saturday night and watch it, it was like ideal. Highly recommend.
It definitely passed the time, and I got a few chuckles, and it was relatively clever in parts.
It was clever, yeah.
And I actually thought I was surprisingly more invested in the plot than I thought I was going to be.
I was invested,
and the outcome.
We don't, for anyone who doesn't hasn't listened to the podcast before, we don't spoil before Spoiler Street. However, we can talk about things that are in the trailer.
Yeah.
So if you don't even want to know what's in the trailer, then maybe pause, go away and watch it and come back. But if you don't mind knowing what's in the trailer, kind of the overall premise, which I didn't know, so I genuinely had a lot of fun finding out, and I do recommend, if you don't know, watch the movie without knowing. But anyway, it turns out he's in a video game. He's a video game character.
Yeah.
And that's actually very cool.
An NPC, as they call them.
That's a great
idea
for a movie.
Which is a non-playable character.
And it was so...
It is a good idea, and it is very Truman Show. I love the core idea of, without going into spoilers, I love the idea of what does the life of a non-playable character look like. And it is
really
just
clever.
like they're on this loop because they're just programmed to do certain things. So he buys the same coffee every day, he goes to his bank every day, and all this chaos of people who are effectively playing what is a Grand Theft Auto like game are doing around him, and is just so it's an enjoyable concept, and it's
great
pretty
'cause, like,
visually executed very well.
It's really well done. Like, I say there was a lot of money spent on this movie, and like at the beginning, before I knew he was in a video game and before we really know what's happening, and we're just following a day in his life, and him and his best mate are just like in the bank where they work, and there's someone coming is in with a gun and is like holding up the bank, and they're just like lie down on the floor and just keep chatting like about their day.
It's funny,
and you're like, that's weird. They seem really cool about this. Then you see like his other friend who's like owns a store, and like there's constantly people jumping through the window of the store, and there's like...
So what did you think was happening at that stage, if you didn't know it was
I didn't know it was a video game, but obviously I knew he was in some form of like weird world. I thought he might have been in a movie. Like, I didn't really understand.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all that, and then I enjoyed the kind of Silicon Valley tech-ish bits about like the people who make the game.
Taika Waititi, a lot of fun as the villain here.
He elevates this movie. Like, I'd say if you were like to do star ratings, which we don't, he'd give it an extra star. Like, he's that powerful. One thing I would say is I'm a huge Jodie Comer fan.
Yeah.
Like, she's incredible.
Wasted.
Completely wasted.
Like, I mean, she's doing good work because she's Jodie Comer, but really there's not much to the... I don't know what it is. It's like, because she's on screen for most of the movie and is the lead. She's the second most important protagonist, but it just felt like, why do you have Jodie Comer doing this?
Why
I don't
is
know,
Jodie
right?
Comer sitting with a headset on, effectively on a Zoom call, playing a video game? Like, that part of it's hard. Like, they're trying to visualize people playing video games, which is a dull thing to look at. They did a decent enough job at doing it. I like the guy from Stranger Things. He played like the other video game programmer.
Keery.
And the kind of plot, there's like, anyway, we won't get into plot now because we wait till spoiler streets. But overall, I enjoyed all the elements. It's a really good movie to sit down with on like Saturday night, as I said, at home watch, and a good few laughs, right?
Yeah,
some good action scenes.
I did laugh a few times, and
I think you liked it a bit less than me.
The action is very well done, but it's still in that CGI kind of, over the top artificial way, which, to be fair, kind of makes sense in the for this movie.
It's excusable.
But it does end up what I sometimes get with that sort of thing is just visual noise. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. I can't tell you, like, at the other end of this movie that there was anything that really stood out to me in terms of an action, an action moment or an action scene. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like, often what I like from an action movie is something like The Best in Class, something like The Raid, where you're just like, oh my god, I've never seen anything like that fight scene. The choreography was... This just felt all very same. Now, which is... It's not... It's a comedy first, action second, I would say.
Yeah.
And Ryan Reynolds does Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
he
he's
does
great,
his
of course.
shtick.
Yeah. Like,
same thing he always does, but it's
flawless
effective.
as a performer in this movie. Like, he does exactly what he says on the tin, right?
Yeah, he does, what he does well is play this doe-eyed innocence of a character learning, like Truman, that their world is a construct, and I actually think he does some good work in here.
I think it's like Ryan Reynolds is such an interesting actor because, as they kind of really leaned into in Deadpool, but like he has been in comedies before that, obviously, he has really good comic timing and can be... I find him really interesting as leading man because he's obviously like incredibly good looking and handsome, but they can kind of pretend somehow like he's kind of dorky and not that handsome, and I don't quite know how he pulls that off because he's supermodel.
He plays a convincing dweeb.
Yeah, and
doesn't
it just doesn't really make any sense.
Doesn't make sense
because he's outrageous looking, but like he pulls it off, and like you believe that he's this like button down dweeb. And like there's just like loads of visuals around that we'll get into on Spoiler Street, but I just think he's great. Like, and I think it's kind of a waste to have him and Jodie Comer in the way they had them because it just didn't really amount to anything.
Well, exactly. It didn't. They didn't feel well paired. it was interesting with Ryan Reynolds though, because he's definitely, he's as you described, but he also is an actor who, like, from a comedy point of view, agree has very good timing, but he doesn't have much range, and in like his delivery and shtick is always kind of the same. Do you know what I mean? He's doing himself. He delivers lines like Ryan Reynolds. He delivers comedy like Ryan Reynolds, which isn't also necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think I could say the same about Bill Murray, who is effectively the same kind of role and performer throughout his whole career, but is consistently enjoyable.
But the exact opposite of Jodie Comer, who can play anything, as we learned in Killing Eve.
Yes.
She can be anyone.
And yet chooses to be a woman in a chair playing video games in this movie.
In fairness to her, though, like, she would have been, it's like a huge Hollywood movie, you're opposite Ryan Reynolds, you're going to get paid millions of dollars. It's from, like, the people who made Stranger Things, like, tick, tick, tick. Of course you're going to do it. And maybe actually it's kind of nice as an actor that you do. I mean, she was in a lot of action scenes in, like, the video game.
I say she got a good
stuff.
paycheck. Yeah, she.
The action scenes would have been probably very fun to film, like the video game action scenes, I say, as an actor as well. But anyway, we both recommend it. Not like the best movie you've ever seen. Totally middle of the road, I would say.
It's
but
very,
let's get to spoilers.
It's very middle of the road, but a totally fine way to while away 2 hours.
Bit long for itself, though, wasn't it?
It kind of just about warrants it's 2 hours, but barely. I would have been much more impressed with it if it was 90 and done.
Yeah, but 90s are a threshold that no movie ever meets.
90 should be the standard.
Yeah, like, it's not
the
Dune,
90-minute film festival podcast has the right idea, and they should be the gold standard of all movie durations.
Like, if you think of, like, Dune compared to this, and like,
oh yeah, I don't want Dune to be 90 minutes.
Yeah, like, but how much? This movie's probably only 40 minutes shorter than Dune, and that's not right. Like, for an action comedy, it should be way shorter than that.
This could have been done in 90. It should have been. Anyway, well, let's move on to spoilers now for Free Guy. Spoiler Street, spoiler warning. This is the spoiler street. Spoiler Street's covered in leaves today.
Yeah, autumnal
nice
spoiler
crunchy
street.
Leaves. So I don't know what much is there to say. I liked the idea of I liked this whole idea of it's essentially an AI, like, right, you know, it's the world's first AI. That's what's happened here.
I love
kind of
that,
accidentally.
actually, as like the underlying kind of deeper story. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and this whole idea, like, they introduced the stakes about halfway through this movie, which are pretty shoehorned in there in terms of it's like at one point Joe Keery's character is like, oh no, evil Taika Waititi is about to upload the new game over the old game and is going to wipe all the data, so we've only got 24 hours. It's basically like we need a time limit to have actual
my understanding
impetus
of, like,
and
that
it works.
kind of, like, online data, and, like, I could be wrong. I don't think
you don't
just be deleted.
I'm sorry, that's not how games work. You don't override the original game with the sequel. That just does not happen.
Though maybe if it's an entirely virtual game, like, I guess it's the kind of the equivalent of, like, World of Warcraft.
Maybe World of Warcraft. Yeah,
this
I guess.
It's like purely online. Like, I don't think anyone's got a disc.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But also, more to the point, why would one do that when the first game is so popular?
Well, also when you've got people playing the first game who may not want to upgrade or can't afford to upgrade. So what are you just gonna kick all those people out of the game until they pay?
I guess he had more to lose if, like, they found out he stole IP, like how much he could get
that kind of
saved
made
for that.
sense.
And, like, I love the idea that they built this kind of, they had a vision of a video game where, like, you just built AI and then you kind of watch them doing lovely things, and then the guy stole it, added it into, like, basically Grand Theft Auto. And then but I didn't quite buy them was when the programmer was like, and that's why this game's so popular, because of our AI. It's like, I don't think that the game was popular because Blue Shirt Guy ordered a different coffee.
You're right.
By the way, I really enjoyed all that stuff about them learning how to make coffee and the woman who had, like, a feminist reawakening.
Yeah, this kind of
but
revolution.
That's not why the game was just big, because it was like a World of Warcraft meets game in terms of, like, online playing, but, like, it's Grand Theft Auto. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was shoehorned in as well. It's almost like halfway through the movie they're like, oh no, we need another plot where, like, he stole their data.
Yeah, it's like, why did Taika Waititi need their AI thing to create NPCs that just drink coffee once a day and live in a Baghdad? It's like they don't do anything interesting.
But he didn't even seem to know himself what he'd stolen. So therefore, why did he steal it?
Well, I guess it was just a really powerful game engine which he used as a starting point. Anyway, it was we don't need to get into the detail.
I enjoyed though that it was like
may not hold
behind the beach in like its own little island, and he had to kind of build a bridge to get to it.
Well,
and
it was a good
that was
MacGuffin.
nice.
This
Yeah.
sort of idea that she's searching for, you know, this proof within this game.
Yeah,
It was a good motivator
quest.
for her.
Yeah.
Good quest.
And I love when Ryan Reynolds realised he'd always seen it in his window.
Yeah,
and
that
they
was a
kind of
nice little
solve it
reveal.
together. Like, I have to say, I really actually, the more I talk about that stuff, I enjoyed it more. And like, then obviously
That's what I mean.
visually,
The plot was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
As it had all the right things. It had good motivation for the characters. It had, as we said, a timeline and impetus to drive it along.
it's just like inherently uncinematic to like continually cut back and forth between people playing video games and then like their video game avatar. Whereas like the Truman Show, which of course, wow, there's like a really loud helicopter above us. The Truman Show, which, I mean, these aren't comparable. The Truman Show I would consider as like an absolute
That's a
work of
masterpiece.
art.
Yeah.
But the Truman Show also, we were sometimes cutting to people watching them on telly, but like 95% were just with them and they're real people, whereas going back and forth, and then it kind of made me care a little bit about Ryan Gosling by the end of the movie, because I'm like, oh, but he's not actually a person.
Yeah,
and it
but
even made her care a bit less about him when they realised he had been programmed for her, the manic pixie dream girl, by the guy from Stranger Things.
no,
and
but
then
that was
suddenly,
his core programming. But the point is, he was evolving because he had the capacity to gain intelligence and grow and learn,
I
which
know.
makes him intelligent.
Yeah, but he was not
Right,
a
and that-
human being, though.
No, he's
so
not a
therefore
human
I kinda
being.
lost
But like,
interest in him.
this is now we're on the verge of getting into the argument about, does AI have sentience and does it have the right to exist? And that's the kind of interesting
would say
thing that
no.
this movie was not interested in even addressing or talking about, even though it was the core concept of it.
Well, they
'Cause-
kind of said it's the world's first AI, 24 hours to save him, and that's the
But
end
that's
of it.
that's as far as that conversation went. It's like the world's first AI is going to be destroyed, and they just kind of went, "Yay, we did it!"
And like, sorry, but I was also saying to Dave, it doesn't quite add up cinematically either, because Jodie Comer and Ryan Reynolds, I keep getting my Ryans mixed up, they have kind of this intimate character moment where they're like making out basically, but then I was like to Dave, but wait a minute, she's just sitting, this isn't a VR headset, like she's just sitting
watching a
it's
screen
not like that Charlie
where her
Brooker
character
show.
touches.
Remember
yeah.
that episode of Black Mirror where there was like people like fully having sex in like virtual reality?
Yeah.
This was just her sitting like typing on her laptop, so therefore that just all made me really disconnected. And then when she finally,
Well, I like that they addressed that, because she was like, "I kissed him," and there's not even a kiss button. Because I was like, "How did that even happen?"
but like, what about what's his name?
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi, who I just love. Like, he's so fucking good in this. But like, he's just going in there and like smashing all the computers, and
Yeah.
then in the end though, they kind of agree like, oh, you can keep all of our IP. We just want to own this island where these characters roam free.
Really
And it's
like that
why are you letting him?
ending. He should be in prison.
Yeah, I didn't.
Or not
understand.
prison, but he should
be paying
lose
them.
all the profits that he got, or give it to them.
I mean, there's probably some argument that like his game could have existed without their code, but the core part of it is, but you stole it.
Well, you
So-
stole it. There's this intellectual property theft.
So that all faded away. And then the bit that like we were laughing our heads off about was when Jodie Comer goes in one last time to meet Ryan Reynolds, and he's like, "There's someone out there who made me."
Oh,
Someone
that
who
was
loves
so
you."
tacked
And then
on.
she has a flashback. You cannot do flashbacks within a movie, at like a 2-hour movie. Like, that's outrageous. Flashback to when the guy from Stranger Things was like, "I made the perfect woman, and it was you."
But it's like, how did you not notice this the first time it was happening?
And then she runs after
It's
him,
absurd.
and they both stand on opposite sides of the road, and like.
And then run into traffic.
But before they run into traffic, it's like, imagine it's just your mate, right? You never knew he fancied you, and he never told you. So like, therefore, no one knows about this scenario.
Yeah.
Then for some reason, your mate runs after you. You've gone to get a coffee, and you turn across the road and look at them. If you made eye contact, would you suddenly be like,
She knows.
"This is it"?
She's
Like they were like making love with each other's eyes.
She's had the flashback.
And then they
she finally realised.
Yeah, like it made no sense. And then they just met in the middle of the road and kissed. And we thought there was going to be a gag like in the video game where like a car would hit them or something. But no, they're just smooching in the middle of a road.
I mean, it was so poorly handled and obvious,
All
and just
the
like
real world
clunkily
stuff,
written.
It's almost like there was a different director in
These
the
two
video
get
game.
together now.
Do you think
They
like the
did-
video game stuff was so different from the real world stuff that they were just too jarring when you were watching them back to back? Like, why were they doing
They
that?
They felt like they were impacting each other. I think I disagree with you there. I mean, I felt like the people at the screens who were changing things were impacting Ryan Reynolds' world, and we were seeing the impact of them saying, "Oh, I'm gonna," or like they're hacking down servers, and we're watching buildings implode.
It's more that I mean, like when her and Ryan Reynolds'
consequences.
avatars were kissing, that felt more romantic than when she was actually kissing someone in the real world.
That's exactly the problem. You spend a whole movie establishing a relationship connection between two characters that doesn't really work, and then kind of don't pay it off, and then completely like left turn it to another character
4 minutes
in which
of
you
the
haven't
movie.
established any romantic relationship, except he was kind of clearly pining after her.
Yeah, I was like, they're platonic.
But why would
flatmates.
she suddenly be like, oh my god, I guess what they were trying for is, oh my god, I fell in love with this non-playable character. But
girl, you have your own
actually
issues if
he
that's who
only
you fell in
loves
love
me
with.
because he was coded by this guy, so I really love him. But it's like, fine, so in that moment it's just like your brain might think that, but like it's like attraction doesn't just work on like some sort of logic where a computer character tells you I'm go find the author. Do you know, it's like she clearly has no physical or chemical attraction to him, or it would have existed, right? You can't just switch on, right?
It's like,
Is that how
desperate
I don't
is
think
she?
that's how attraction works.
They kind of tried to establish that she's quite desperate because she said it's the first kiss I've had with a non-toxic male, and turns out he's not real or something. So they maybe kind of were trying to imply that she's had bad relationships, but like they didn't flesh her out whatsoever. She was like so two-dimensional that like if she's at a place in her life where she's desperate for some kindness, and then she finally realizes how much the friend loves her, there's maybe a point where that works, but not in the last 2 minutes of the movie.
That just yeah, exactly. You don't have time. You didn't have the time to establish that, and also that whole thing feels like a trope, and a potentially dangerous trope that has existed in Hollywood screenwriting for decades. This whole idea of the best friend who's the male best friend who's in love with the female best friend, but she doesn't know it. But if only she could just see him in the right light. Do you know what I mean? And he's been there the whole time. This whole thing, but that never translates to reality.
The lesson should be: if a woman
You
doesn't
can be
love
friends
you
if
and
you-
doesn't want to be with you, then don't keep pursuing her.
Exactly, and this is why I mean it's potentially dangerous, because that's what Hollywood teaches young boys potentially, is like the persistence pays off, and like you can have a long-term friendship with the girl you fancy, and eventually she'll see you for who you are when non-playable Ryan Reynolds spells it out to her in literal detail.
It's interesting because I just binge watched You on Netflix, which I'm obsessed about, and that really like turns it on its head, like the traditional classic Hollywood rom-com, man pursuing woman showing up at her desk or her office with flowers uninvited, etc., and kind of shows you how actually creepy that is. And it's interesting in this one, it's like it's actually really creepy of him that he wrote all of her traits into being this like desirable thing that this character was going to like, when he heard a certain song, for example, that she was always singing, would trigger him. But also it's like, okay, but didn't you write that code like 5 years ago? So 5 years later you're telling me she still walks around singing that song?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Obviously.
Also just kind of shows how shallow it is. Basically he programmed
It shows how shallow her character is that we were written.
Well,
oh my
it's
gosh,
more that-
she likes bubblegum ice cream and
Well, that's
sings
what I
a
was going to
particular
say, though.
song.
It's more shallow. It's more the guy's shallow understanding of her. He's
Yeah.
like, she sings a song and she likes ice cream, and they can be the two things that trigger her for this character, and it's just so surface level. It's
And
weird.
really, I feel like her whole character, now that we think about it, is just a male screenwriter's idea. Zach Penn in this instance, and another guy, Matthew something. Zach Penn has a troubled, like, writing history, I would say. Anyway,
Right, what's your in?
Batman, Superman, and
Right, yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So, but the it feels like a male writer trying to write a strong, kick-ass woman with some sort of quirky characteristics.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't feel like, I feel like she didn't really feel. That's probably why we're jarring with Jodie Comer playing her, because she feels relatively underwritten for someone who's kind of the second protagonist.
Yeah, she's very underwritten. Yeah, it's interesting, and it makes sense with Free Guy. Like, Guy himself should be two-dimensional because he's a bloody computer game character. Doesn't make sense with her, and I wish they just hadn't. If they hadn't tacked the romantic plot on at the end of it, it would have been a better movie for it. However, I never object to romantic plots. I quite enjoy them. It was just the way they did it was so poor. They had no chemistry. They were kissing in the middle of a road, and it made no sense.
It's just lame. It was just they didn't put any groundwork into that. It just felt very constructed. like a video game.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
I can't believe how long we've spent
Yeah, we
talking
said
about
we were
that
gonna
one
talk-
plot point.
We said we were going to talk about this for 10 minutes because it was that kind of vibe.
But I don't really know what else to say about this. The other thing, I quite enjoyed the Ryan Reynolds the V2 that they made, the big buffed up
Oh, that
one.
was
It was quite
so
funny.
fun.
I enjoyed the whole idea
really
of this
funny.
team of writers who hadn't finished creating the character or his dialogue. So you get that. I mean, that was an idea which they mined a lot of good comedy from.
Yeah,
I
he
really
was
enjoyed. Like he's just walking down the street with Free Guy and he's just like, "You seem very adjective today."
And you go, you are insert insult here.
Yeah.
And it was like
Catchphrase.
Ryan Reynolds' like face photoshopped onto like a really buff body, but like in a really creepy way, but worked because it was a video game. So like it could look.
But
that
I
creepy.
liked that it felt like it was clever, that it felt like a visual representation of what Taika Waititi's character would think is cool.
Yeah.
Right. So it felt like an extension of that was almost an avatar of him, or what he would project. This sort of shallow kind of bro idea.
And not to nitpick a plot point that doesn't in any way matter and drag this podcast on, but you know the way at the start the guy from Stranger Things.
Why
is
wasn't
like,
his friend helping him? Is
no,
what you're
not
gonna say?
that. Because I don't really think they were friends. It was more like him and Jodie Comer were kind of estranged. He was working for the big bad video company.
Yeah.
Why was he like, I don't want to be a computer programmer. I want to be down here
Yeah,
with
they
the
never really
interns,
explained that.
and my job is to just play the game and like check for
I want to
bugs.
do customer service.
Yeah, it was like
I think it was because he was burned because of the experience of the game that they tried to develop.
But then why didn't he just go and work for a different game
But even
company?
Taika Waititi was like, I want you to progress your career because you're amazing.
Yeah, like
And
he
he was
basically
like-
was playing video game characters and walking around looking for glitches.
Yeah.
Like that was all really weird as well. Anyway,
I did
think
like
we're
that. I
unpicking
did
it
like
too
that
much.
whole thing with him and his partner going in and like as detectives trying to uncover what's wrong with this player who's got the NPC skin
Also,
and all this terminology. Like, where'd you get the
Talk
skin?
About, like the fact that like the whole world is talking about blue shirt guy. Like it's on.
Oh, that was
who has
absurd.
a blue shirt and is currently taking the video
See,
world game by storm? Who is blue shirt guy?
A Jeopardy. This is the problem, that they did a Jeopardy thing. Because actually the movie, it does quite a clever thing by pulling a load of famous Twitch and YouTube gamers like Ninja and Jacksepticeye and all these people, and they have them do some commentary, which
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
is
fun.
a really good nod to people who are into video games, and it's a good way to sort of insert that culture into the thing and feel authentic. So it makes sense that they would be talking about this blue shirt guy. But yeah, Jeopardy, it's such a cultural event. some one character in a video game that it makes it
appeared to
onto
be on-
Jeopardy. I
appeared to
do
be
not
on,
believe that.
Actual news channels as well.
Oh yeah, the news are reporting on this. My God, there's a guy in a video game who's being a good guy. Now I guess you do get some sort of and in other news, but like
But
it was
wouldn't-
such a stretch.
But if it was making
Just
that
keep-
many waves, wouldn't other players, so not NPCs, but like actual players, have gone into the game and started being good? Like, why would everyone have just been witnessing this phenomenon of this
Well, I think
guy?
that was the idea. You had a little kid in Japan cosplaying as Free Guy.
Yeah,
right?
but no one in the
He
game
was
was
ha-
doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just absurd. But anyway, it's like the new Squid Games, basically.
I did-
Everyone's going to be Free Guy for
I
Halloween.
did like that concept of the psychology of, you give players access to a world where they can do anything and they just end up being dickheads.
Yeah, but those
Right,
worlds
and-
like Grand Theft Auto in this world, in this game, their point system and their plot are to make people be violent.
Yeah, that's what the missions are. That's what. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But also, if you leave people to their own devices, in like they often just do horrible things in video games.
Well, like when I used to
So
play
the-
just Sims, I would obviously put my Sim in the swimming pool and immediately take away the ladder
Yeah.
and then just see
and then
what
watch
happens.
them swim themselves to death because Sims don't know how to get out of the swimming pool without a ladder.
Anyway, we have
or the
to go.
other one you do is you build a room, tell the Sim to go in there, then
and take
away the door.
Yeah, been there.
And
And
then
then you sell the urn for $5.
and then you move someone else in. That was the other fun thing in The Sims. You marry someone in the neighbourhood, you get their whole household income of 20k,
Yeah.
and then you
And then you lock them in a closet.
murder them in a closet and sell their urn.
Right, we have to go.
Okay.
We've gone way off on this one. If
Thanks for listening.
If anyone's still listening, let us know what you thought of Free Guy. Head over to Apple Podcasts and please subscribe, rate, and follow us over there. There's been like an algorithm glitch because we didn't release that many episodes during the pandemic, and we've like dropped out of people's feeds. So please subscribe if you can.
Yeah.
And then head over to patreon.com/thecinema for all our retro movie watches and weekly Succession recaps, which we are loving. And then social medias.
At The Cinemile on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and thecinemile@gmail.com on email.
Awesome. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
I'm not going to be the good guy. I'm going to be the great guy.
Okay, well, enjoy your lifetime supply of virginity. Off you go. So easy.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What do you do when no one else is watching? What do you do that makes you happy for no reason at all? What are you obsessed with? I'm Leslie Arfin, and I'm a writer, but I'm also a dancer, a painter, a vapor, a dollhouse enthusiast, and basically just an overall hobbyist. My podcast, Filling the Void, is all about what other people are fanatically into. We talk about hobbies, even if you don't have one.
Listen to Filling the Void on Tuesdays on the Earios Network and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.